Hey guys, I'm FatBuddyCat, and this is a mini dirt track racer. Today, we're going to install a sprocket on our 10-inch split rim. I'm going to start by removing these aluminum spacers that I was using to lift the engine before, and I'll make sure these studs are all the way down. We're going to be using bolts after, but this will make the mock-up a whole lot easier. Now I just have to place the engine on top of the studs. I don't have any nuts holding the block down. It can still pivot, but it's locked in at that height. Now I'll get the torque converter on the side cover. 2 bolts opposite of each other. That'll hold this torque converter exactly where it's going to be after final installation. I already have this set up for a number 35 chain. We're going to be running the gold on gold RLV and a 60-tooth sprocket. To get the sprocket on, I'm just taking the axle nut and spacer off the end, and I removed 1 bolt from the brake caliper so that I can tip it up off of the rotor. When I push the axle back through, I'll be able to tip this down and get the sprocket on there. That was super simple. What I'm trying to do here is set this thing up so that it's really easy to maintain and fun to own. Now I'm going to set 3 studs to roughly hold this sprocket in place. Those holes on the sprocket just line up with the holes on the hub itself. This is super loose, and we're sagging about 1/8 of an inch. That's okay. We're just checking the travel of the chain between the 2 sprockets. We want to make sure that we're going to clear this section of the frame. I just draped an old length of the same gold on gold 35 over both of those sprockets, and when I put tension on the pulley, as if we were driving forward, the chain comes right up off of the frame. So we're going to be good at this height without any risers. From the rear, put a little tension back on the chain, and it looks like I actually have to go in a little bit. So these bolts are definitely long enough. Just have to find something to space the sprocket out from the hub. I do believe that this is going to get it. I know it's hard to see with all the shadows and the drooping chain, but oh yeah, let me show you where I'm at. I have my bolt. Yeah, this one's easier to see. We're going through a lock washer and then the hub. On the other side, I have an oversized nut that works as a spacer. After the spacer, I have a nut that threads onto the bolt. When it's all tightened together, it creates a stud. I did that 6 times over so that they're all the same. Now the sprocket goes up against the hub, and all that we're worried about is the 6 lock nuts that go on the end of each one. Wicked positive vibes. That never happens. That random section of chain that I picked out fits perfectly. I don't even have the nuts holding that sprocket on. Right in the middle of the tensioner. Word up. I just removed the chain, and now we're going to address this little clearance issue with the mounting plate for the torque converter. We're actually not touching, but when things get to vibrating, they probably will, and that'll be super annoying. So I'll grab my Sharpie and make a line. Then we'll lop it off with an angle grinder. It was easiest to mark 2 points and then connect them with a straight line. I'll throw some tape over these bearings, take this outside, and I'll give it the business. Big Herc made that work look like hot butter. I'm going to clean it up a little, and then I'll remove my tape. Normally, I would take the bearings out for this, but I know these ones are good, and hey, quick and easy. I'm not a complete savage. I popped off those outside seals on these bearings, and I packed them up with some red grease. That shouldn't be a problem anymore. I just pulled the engine and removed the 4 studs. I'm going to reinstall it using 4 bolts this time. I'm snug, but I'm not tight. I can still pivot the engine a little bit. Now I'll reinstall the torque converter with all 4 bolts. Beautiful. Up next, I'm going to be replacing the sprocket studs. I went down to the hardware store for the quarter 28 lock nuts, and apparently somebody bought those up and used them already. So, quarter 20 it is. I have all this hardware swapped out. Now I get the sprocket back on, and I'll loop the chain back around just to check the alignment one more time before I add the nuts. We're on there, and we're looking pretty straight. We can still pitch the engine a little bit to get it absolutely perfect. So, knowing that, I'm going to go ahead and finish these off. The nuts are tight, the axle's tight, the caliper is back on, We'll give it a spin. Make sure we're not hanging up anywhere. Get plenty of room back there. The tensioner's doing its thing. Alright, now we can tighten down the engine. I was able to bring all 4 of my bolts home with a short 1/2-inch wrench. I didn't have to remove the torque converter, spin anything around, or do anything strange. I worked it all from this side, and I got the job done. Now we just got to swing by the party and drop off some fuel, spark, and air. We'll have things popping in no time. Have a good night, guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one.
I want you to stay.